Welcome to Fowler Kitchen. This kitchen, we have a live restaurant. So it's really important to us. We consider ourselves an upscale restaurant, and it's really important to us that we portion things out properly and that every guest gets the same thing on their plate. We call it consistency. I'm going to show you today a tenderloin, also called a pismo. The pismo stands for peeled side muscle on, and I'll show you where that side muscle is on this tenderloin. But I'm going to give you an idea of how to portion. It's not something that everybody gets to do nowadays in the industry. We're lucky at this school because we get some whole pieces in. We get whole fish in. We get whole pork loins in. We get the whole tenderloin in. And knowing how to portion properly and being able to do it consistently, it can, whether you own the restaurant yourself or you're working for somebody else, it can save an awful lot of money whenever you're able to do this yourself. Okay, so we're going to get started. The first thing I'm going to do is take up my bucket for scraps. When I open the tenderloin, I always turn it over to the bottom. It's where there's less fat on the tenderloin itself. And I put my knife in and I open up the package. As I open up the package, I'm trying to keep the blood from going all over the place. I'll pick the package up, take it over here. Let all that blood run right down so it's not all over my cutting board. Most of the time I'm going to do a lot of these, one after another. And I really don't want a lot of blood and liquid all over the table. I'm going to dry it off. But I said I was going to tell you where the chain is, that side muscle. So it's right here. You can see it's attached really just by tendons, fat, some silver skin, but this is the chain right here, and it comes all the way to what we call the head of the tenderloin. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean all of this off, and we're going to find out what the whole weight is and what the cleaned weight is. We'll start right here by going for the whole weight. We'll put it on the scale over here. And the scale tells us that it's 7.5 pounds. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the board and I'm going to fill in so I don't forget that it's 7.5 pounds. So I've taken a few minutes and I've cleaned the tenderloin. The chain is over here, and the top of the head that connects the chain to the tenderloin is over here as well. I like to know what the whole weight is because at some point someone is going to ask me how much waste there was. It's an important part, an important step to know the whole weight. Now we have what I call the clean tenderloin. We're going to take the clean tenderloin and we're going to put it back on the scale, and we're going to find out the weight of this. It's now 5.3 pounds. 5.3 pounds. Important number. We're going to take that and we're going to add it right here on the board to the clean weight. I have written over here, ready to portion, because the clean weight works really well with describing the tenderloin. But if you have a whole pork shoulder and you've already braised it and you're going to portion it now, that's what we would call ready to portion, and it's not necessarily the same as clean. The point at which you are ready to portion, you need that weight. Once we have this weight in pounds, I like to translate it to ounces. So I take my calculator and I multiply 16, because that's the number of ounces in a pound, times 5.3. And that tells me I have 84.8 ounces. I'm going to take the total ounces and write them in here. And I'm just going to write 84 ounces. The reason I just put 84 is because the 0.8 is going to get lost somewhere in the process. Whole numbers are easier to work with. So then I have two different options here. In some situations, you're going to not necessarily know what the weight is, and you're going to have a limited amount of meat available. You'll know the number of guests that you have. So you would separate your portioning by the number of guests. You would divide the number of guests by the number of ounces. We'll start here. We're going to take this tenderloin and we're going to portion it into 6-ounce pieces. We know we have 84 ounces. So then we divide 84 by 6, and we know that we're going to get 14 equal portions. If we're doing it by guest count, and we know we have 20 guests coming in, and we have 84 ounces, then we're going to take 84 and we're going to divide it by 20. And now we're going to come up with 4.2 ounces per person. $14 each, or 4.2 per person. For this video, we're going to do the portion size. We're going to go for a 6-ounce portion out of this tenderloin. We would expect to get 14 pieces, 14 portions out of this whole tenderloin. I want to tell you that at this point, everything that I've showed you so far, it's all math and science based, and it in the end is actually very simple. The part that we're going to do right now, this is the one that requires experience and the opportunity to have worked with this before. I've done it so many times, I can probably come pretty close to a 6-ounce portion. In the beginning, it takes a little bit of time to understand that. You have to be able to look and judge an entire tenderloin and know where to start. So when I look at this tenderloin, it would be so easy to take it and just cut it right in half and get 7 out of this side and 7 out of this side. But every fillet needs to be the same weight. 14, we're getting 14 out of it. So I take this and I look at the center of the tenderloin. You know, that's the best part. Everybody wants that piece right there. Look how wide it is here compared to how wide it is here, compared to how wide it is here. See how tall it is here versus how tall it's not over here? You have to be able to take all those things into consideration and cut a 6-ounce portion out of this with as little waste as possible. So I know that a 6-ounce portion at this end is probably going to be about this big, about that wide. A portion at this end, because of the thickness and the density of the meat, it's going to be a lot shorter in length. I'm going to take the knife and I'm going to cut the very first one, and I'm going to judge the rest of the fillets off of that based on how it plays. Okay, so here we go. 6-ounce portion. Set to ounces, I got a 5.2. I'm going to take this one, I'm going to look at the weight or the size over here, the size back here, the size up here. When I squeeze it and get it nice and compact, how does that all compare to the next slice that I need to get? The next slice, much bigger around. That tells me that my slice has to be thinner than that one. Pretty sure that one's going to be bigger. Look at that, 6 ounces. Very nice. Now we're going to take this one and we're going to do the same thing as we work our way down the tenderloin. The next tenderloin slice is going to be a little bit thinner than this one because we're approaching the fattest part of the tenderloin. And 6 again. So to wrap this up, I really want you to understand the math part first. The math is really the most important thing as a starting point. You have to understand what whole weight is. You have to understand what clean or ready to portion weight is. You have to be able to transfer that to ounces. And then you have to know whether or not we're portioning according to the number of portions that we need to get, or whether we're portioning according to the number of guests that we have. in this class, in my classes, I don't want you starting a tenderloin or a piece of fish or a whole cut of anything unless you and I have had the conversation first about where you're going to start, what you're going to do, and how you're going to go about it. A tenderloin or a side of fish, a pork loin, those things all are extremely expensive, and it's important to me to make sure that we are getting every last bit of it that we can possibly get out of it, and then what we're going to do with our scraps, because we're not going to put anything in the trash that we don't have to put in the trash or to the compost. So I'll see you at the cutting board.